Our next question, Jim, sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Will in Philadelphia. What are your thoughts on Wrestler's Court? How long has it been around? I've only heard stories about the early 2000s and really nothing before that. Have you seen anything crazy? Were you ever subject of one?
The concept and the idea of the thing was around for a little while, but it never became it never became an actual valid approved, sanctioned thing with official people in spots or in positions or whatever. And it would just grew in the WWF to give the guys something to do, especially if they were overseas or on the road or whatever in the house shows. It wasn't done at television or pay-per-views. That's a hectic day. If guys were on the road for an extended period of time and they were bored and somebody had done something and got under their skin, well, then they might come up with it. And in the territories, it was nothing more than loosely, whether the heels or the baby faces. A lot of times your dressing rooms were separate, so it'd be one group or the other, but not both. Would get a guy, especially one of the new guys in the territory or a young guy that didn't know how to conduct himself necessarily, and he'd done something, and they'd fuck with him and try him and convict him of some fence building around an arena rat, or, fucking not doing his share of the driving or not paying trance or whatever the fuck. And then it became a more elaborate thing with guys playing the parts of witnesses and Undertaker being a judge, and it expanded in the WWF. But that's kind of the primary place that it has been done over the last 20 years. And beforehand, it was not. They didn't put as much time and effort into it in the old days as they have recently, I guess, is the best way to say it. And no, a lot of places didn't do it to begin with. Bill Watts wouldn't even. It was a $50 fine to play cards in the locker room after 7:30. You think he's going to let the guys have a wrestler's court? You know why it was a $50 fine to play cards? Because guys wouldn't want to go to the ring if they were winning. They wouldn't want to give up a good hand, and it would delay the fucking show, or they'd be more worried about that than they were about getting their finish. And so he said, "Fuck it, 7:30, cards go in the bag, or it's $50." Or 6:30, I should say, for a 7:30 show. If you wanted to get there early and play cards on your own time, you were entirely welcome to do so.
So when did you first hear the term Wrestler's Court?
Really in the WWF. Toward the end when I went up there in the 90s. Because like I said, it wasn't an organized thing. Every once in a while in one of the territories, somebody would get some guy and they'd get together and bust his balls. But there was never a permanent judge and a series of defense attorneys, and the whole thing was made a production of, like in the WWF.
And Vince was, just happy to have the wrestlers police themselves? What was his thoughts? It
wasn't any policing that Vince gave a shit about. It was at house shows. He'd hear about it afterwards. It was like if the guy didn't carry the bags on the fucking tour, or the guy mooched some of the beer, or didn't chip in to buy a fucking 6-pack, or committed some social offense amongst the boys, or some fucking goofy charge they could drum up on a guy that they just wanted to fuck with in a fairly good-natured way. It wasn't like they were policing themselves where they were eliminating people who were diddling children or fucking selling crack at the goddamn elementary school playground. No, it was just bullshit amongst the boys. Vince didn't care as long as nobody got in a fight about it, but it wasn't like they were doing Vince's job for him in keeping themselves in line as far as he would be worried about.
Our next question, Jim, sent to CornyDriveThru.
As a matter of fact, sometimes you could be brought up in Wrestler's Court for being a stooge to the office. And he certainly didn't want to prevent that from happening.
Who did it happen to?
Well, that's a popular charge over the years. I can't remember any specifics, but you always want to bring a guy up on charges of being an office stooge if you want to fuck with him.
But I mean, technically, wouldn't the Undertaker classify as an office stooge?
No.
Who talked to Vince more than the Undertaker? Who buried guys more to Vince than The Undertaker?
No, well, there's a big difference between talking to the boss because you're a top star and burying guys or telling on guys. Hey, so and so's, he had the fucking rat in the fucking locker room the other night or whatever. Undertaker doesn't do that shit. Undertaker would talk to Vince because either Vince would want Undertaker's viewpoint on whatever he was involved in, or Taker might want to pitch something or might want to pitch somebody. But he's not going to him say, like Grizzly used to do for Bill Watts. Hey, fucking Taka Michinoku is 15 minutes late. You need to find his ass. Yeah, he wasn't stooging on people.
Was Taco late?
Well, I'm just pulling that out of my ass. You know what I'm saying.
All right.
There's a difference between stooging on people. It's the difference in the presentation between stooging on people and burying people and just reporting facts to a fucking employer.